Hey everyone, this is Sandeep back with another video, and in today's video I'm going to talk about Express, one of the most popular npm repository in the world of Node.js. So this is more of a Node and Express crash course where we are going to create our own server and our own server side application using Node and Express. So let's jump into the agenda of this video. Okay, so this is more of a Node and Express crash course. I mean, there will be a lot of information which I'm going to share around express.js. So I'm not going to cover a lot of Node.js here. If you want to learn about Node, the basics of Node, or if you need a crash course on Node.js, I would suggest you go and watch the previous video which I have uploaded around Node basics, right? So there is a video, Learn Node.js with Project in 90 minutes, which is completely hands-on video, I would say. So in this video, I'm going to talk about Express, and we are going to create our own server and our own server-side application. So obviously we'll start with Express. Then we're going to learn how to serve content from the server, like how to serve the HTML content, CSS content, JavaScript, images, and even JSON. And even we will learn how to call the APIs from the web browser. We're going to learn about templating because we need to create templates, reusable templates to return to the browser, right? So that we don't need to write a lot of HTML, and how to club actually HTML with data. So we are basically combining the HTML and data together. Then we're going to talk about, I'm going to talk about sending HTML requests from the server to another server. So it's server to server side communication. And then finally, I'm going to cover sending HTTP requests from the web. And all of this we are going to do with hands-on. All of this is going to happen practically, right? Everything will be hands-on. We are going to create a weather app, and I'm going to explain all of these concepts while building this weather app. So without further ado, let's jump into the coding. A bit of theory. I mean, I always talk a bit of theory, right? Like if I apply the 80-20 principle, 20% theory, 80% hands-on, right? So let's jump onto the web first, and let's understand how web works. And this is critical. This is really important. You need to understand if you're a beginner, right? Maybe you don't know, you haven't been into programming or coding from a long time. So I think like beginner also in the perspective while making these videos. So how web works? So you know web browser, right? So whenever you go to web browser, and if you type any link, like take the example of Wikipedia, right? So if I type Wikipedia's URL, so I have this Wikipedia's URL here, and this is the URL, right? https://en.wikipedia.org. And if I hit enter, now you're hitting this address, right, using your browser, but actually behind the scenes. So you must be thinking like, from where this all of this content is coming? Is it on my computer? Obviously it is not on your computer. Basically when I hit this URL, it goes to another computer, and this computer is a specialized computer, I would say, which we call a server. So basically this is the really simple architecture of web, I would say, or a web application. So when you hit any website or web application, like in our case it's a Wikipedia, right, we send a request to the server. So it's like computer to computer communication which is happening here. So I've entered, so I'm using browser as my medium, right, as a software to communicate to the server. So think like browser is a software which you are using to communicate to another computer, which we call a server. And the server has the content of Wikipedia. Now I'm thinking Wikipedia is a static site. I'm just taking, it might be a dynamic site also, or it must be actually, but I'm taking simple example of Wikipedia here, right? And say suppose I search something here, maybe I search about Node.js. In this case, basically it's loading the pages which are related to Node.js. So this is again another request I'm sending on the server, and server is returning me a response which is HTML page. which I'm rendering, which is getting rendered into the browser. So this is a simple architecture of any web application or a website. And this is what we are going to learn in this video. We're going to create our own server and we are going to send the request and we are going to get the response back. The architecture can be complex. Now I'm taking the example of Amazon here. Amazon might be having a really complex architecture than whatever I'm showing here. So if I hit amazon.com, right, let's go to amazon.in and maybe I'm searching for iPhone here, right? In this case, I'm getting the product list which is coming, right? So obviously they haven't made all of this product list as HTML pages. So I have created a simple architecture here where I'm hitting the amazon.in site, I'm searching for the product. Again, the request is going on the server. Now they are having a lot of servers. Actually, I have just shown one server here, but they have a lot of servers. So I don't want to get into the detail or depth of that. And all of those products are actually stored on the database. Let's assume all of those products are actually stored on a database. So now this computer is interacting with another storage device, right? Database. It's getting all of those products from the database and it's returning to the Amazon, right? I'm in my browser. This is how I'm able to see all of these iPhones here. The architecture can be more complex. If I go to the third example, I just wanted to show you. Take the example of Instagram, right? So if I hit Instagram, let me try to hit Instagram also, and we see all of these photographs, right? So this video, this photograph which is coming, right? Video, photograph, whatever it is coming, right? So how it is coming? Again, I'm sending a request to the server and I'm getting the response back. But this time, the server is hitting the database. It's taking the information related to all the images, and then it is hitting a specialized storage device. Maybe it is HDFS or S3, Amazon S3, right? And it's getting those images from there. So the architecture can be very complex, but the basics which we want to understand here, the basics are always going to be same. If we go in a simpler way, right? So there will be browser involved or a mobile device involved, right? Where we are going to hit the URL, we are going to send the request, and we are going to get the response from the server. And this is the architecture, or this is the architecture design we are going to work in this video. We're going to create our own server. We are going to use the browser to hit that server and load our weather app. So we are going to deploy the weather app on the server, and that server is going to be in my machine, in my laptop, on this computer only. So I'll create a separate video where we'll deploy it to server which is on internet, which is on web. But this time in this video, we are going to have that server created on my personal computer or my laptop. Cool. So I'm going to close Instagram, Amazon, and Node.js. And probably I can close this one also. Let's move on to Express, talk about Express now. So as I said, right, we are going to create this simple architecture, web hitting the server, and server is going to serve. So we're going to learn how to serve HTML, CSS, JavaScript, images, JSON, and even APIs. So this is the Express server which we are going to create. So you can hit this browser from mobile also or from the browser also. So we're going to go step by step. We are going to create a weather app project. We're going to install Express. We are going to create the Express server. We'll set up some routes, some URLs, and we're going to start the server or listen for the request on particular port on that server. So let's start by creating a folder, right? So I'm going to create a new folder here called weather-app, and I'm going to open this folder inside the terminal. Okay, and I'm going to create a new JavaScript project. So I'm going to use npm init command for that, because I need to install some node modules, right? So to do that, I need to have the package.json file. So npm init yes So I have created the default package.json file here. Now I'm going to open this weather app inside my code editor. So I'll go back to my Visual Studio Code. I'll go to File, Open Folder, and I have that inside this. I need to open weather app. And by running that npm init yes command with yes argument, right, I got this package.json file created. So right now I don't have any dependencies installed. As I said, right, so we are going to create a server, a web server using Express. And Express is a pretty popular npm repository. So if I type Express, you'll see this, right? So what is Express? Express is fast, unopinionated, minimalist web framework for Node.js. And how we can install Express? So we can install Express using npm install and Express command. There's a lot of documentation, guide, API references are given here. Getting started guide is also there. So if you want, you can go through it, or you can watch this video and learn about Express. So let's install Express. So I'll go back to my terminal again, and I'm going to say npm install Express, and I'm going to install a version with some number, right? So I'll give it a number, because when you're going to, I don't know when you're watching this video, right? And there's these libraries, they keep on updating, right? So I don't want whatever version I'm using. So if you install npm install Express, it's going to install the latest version of Express, right? And I don't want to do that. Maybe we'll go, so the version which I'm using in this video is 4.17.2. So this is the version I suggest you also install, and we will use save as an argument. So please use this version so that you can follow along on this video pretty easily, I would say. I mean, I don't think so you'll face any issues or any errors. So let's try to install Express in our weather app. It should be pretty quick. Cool. So we have our Express installed, right? So we are done with our step one, I would say, right? Okay, step two, I would say, create a weather app. We have created a weather app project. We have installed Express. Now we are going to create the Express server, the server which I was talking about, right? This server. And it's really simple. So let's go back to our code editor, and I'm going to create a new folder here called src, where I'm going to keep all of my source code, and inside that I'm going to create a new file called app.js. JavaScript, right? So Node, JavaScript, they're related. So I'm going to import Express first. So I'll say Express is equals to require, and I want to have Express in my app.js. So this is how you import npm modules in Node or in using JavaScript. So I say require, and this will return me the Express library, all the functions, objects, whatever it is, right? And I got the Express here. Now I'm using Express. I'm going to create my server, and you can't imagine, it's really easy to create server using Express. So you just need to say, so I'm naming my server as app, and you just need to call this function. That's it. So this is how your server is going to get created. Just calling this function, and by default, it's going to create the server for yourself. Now we need to start that server, or we need to listen for the events, right? So what is an event? So event is basically, when I send a request from the browser to the server. So if I type some URL, and if I hit enter, that's an event where I'm sending the request on the server. So this server, you think like this server is a person or some machine, which is like awake, always awake, listening for the events. So it's listening whether the new request is coming. So whenever the request is coming, so say suppose I'm sending hello to the server. Okay, so server will be sitting there. It's a computer which is always on. It's never going to get shut down, right? So if I send a request, it's going to listen for the request. It will send the response, and then it will just stay as it is. I mean, it will remain idle, right? And it will be waiting for the next request. So that's what we are going to we are creating here, right? This server, this blue color box, not actually a machine, but a server which is listening. Now, how we can start that server? So to do that, we use a function called app.listen. So I'm saying, okay, I am listening on this port. So I'm listening on 3000, the port number, and that will take one callback function so that we should know whether the server has been started or not. I'm just going to log server, or I would say app started on port 3000. So I've created a server. I'm listening for the events, or I'm listening for the request on the port number 3000, and then it's going to log this. So let's go back to our terminal and start our server. So I'm going to clear, I'll say npm src slash app.js. So I'm starting because that app.js is inside the source folder. That's why I'm using the exact path. So it's saying unknown command. Okay, I'm using npm, sorry. I need to use node src slash app.js. See that? So now my machine, that computer, that server has actually started. Now the server has started, or that program on the server, I would say, has started, and now it's listening for the event. So if I say localhost 3000, so if I go to browser, right, and if I type localhost 3000, see, it's saying cannot get because I haven't created any route, but actually my server has been started. Okay, now let's go back to my nodes first. So Express, we have created the server, right? Now we will set up some routes, right? So when I'm going to hit this local host, I don't want to show this error, right? I want to show some page, some hello, right? And we can do that by creating routes. So let's see how we can create routes. To create the route in Express, we use something called app.get. So I'm sending whenever someone is going to send a get request to my server, which has you can use empty or you can use slash. So this is a default route. So whenever I'm going to hit localhost 3000, this route or this code is going to get executed, and it's going to have a callback function again, and this callback function actually gets two parameters, request and response. So request is this request, right, which I'm sending here, right? This request object. That's the object that request is going to have, and response is that response object, which is a second argument, right? So now I'm going to say, okay, I'll come back here. And this time, I'm not sending any request. I'm just calling localhost 3000. So request, I'm definitely going to get the request object, but I'm not interested in request object. I'm interested only in response. So I'm going to say response.send, and I'll return back something. So whenever the request is coming, I'll return back something. And for the simplicity, I'm just going to return a string, hello from node. Sorry, I'll write hello from Express. That should look good. Okay. So when I'm going to hit this URL, I mean the empty URL, just localhost 3000, there will be no sub URL, I would say. I'm going to respond. So response.send, I'm sending hello from Express. Now if I go back, so my server is running, and now if I go back and refresh. Okay, so something went wrong. Probably I need to restart my server. Yes, I need to restart my server actually, because I have written new code, right? So to have that new code available, I need to restart my server. So I'll say node. Again, the server has been started. Now if I go ahead and refresh, see that? I'm getting hello from Express. Now, so the same thing is happening here. I'm sending the request from the browser. It's going to the server, and that server is nothing but this code, right? This Express server, which is listening on port 3000, and this is the code which is getting executed, and I'm getting the response, which is just a simple text. Okay, so now I'm going to install So if I do any changes in my program, right, I have to restart my server like I did previously, right? So I have to restart my server. So to avoid that, whenever I'm doing any changes, I want my app to restart or my server to restart again automatically. To do that, we are going to install npm module called npm install called nodemon, and I'm going to use sudo for this. Npm install nodemon. So this is a library or npm module which will help us, to automatically restart our server or automatically run our code. Npm install nodemon, and I'm going to install this as a global repository. So I don't want it to be specific to project. I should be able to use it in any project, right? That's why I'm using this -g flag. I'll say yes, enter. So it's asking for the password. Let me enter the password. Sure, it got installed. Now I'm going to say clear. Now I'm going to run. So previously I was running something like this, right? Source app.js. Now I'm going to run my app.js or my server using nodemon. I'll say nodemon, then source/app.js. And you see something different here, right? To restart at any time, enter rs watching path. It's watching for the file changes, right? And my application has started. Now I'm going to add new route. So let's go ahead and add a new route to our application. So for that, I'm going to use app.get. And when the URL is something like this, maybe something like weather, because we are creating a weather app, right? So we are going to listen for the so this is a new route, weather route, which I have created. It's going to have again the callback function, and that callback function is going to have request and response. And this time I'm going to send a response.send, and let's return a weather string, something like this. Now if I go back to my terminal, see that app started. This was the last. Now restarting due to changes. Starting node source app.js. So I don't need to stop my application, node application, and again start it, right? A nodemon, thanks to nodemon, it did it automatically. So now I can go back to my browser and I can use this new route, something like this. See that? And I'm getting weather back. If I remove this and enter, I'm getting hello from Express. This is my main page. And if I'm typing weather, I'm getting weather back. And if I type something else like weather1, it says, okay, this route doesn't exist, because obviously I haven't created that weather1 route yet. So we have only weather. Cool. So let's create some more routes, I would say. So I'm going to create a couple of more routes because this application is going to have a couple of more routes. I'm just going to do some copy paste. And there will be another route which will be related to pricing, which will return the pricing related data. So obviously, I mean, we are creating a weather app. We are not going to charge users. So that will be free service, but just to have a page, right? A pricing page, I'm adding the pricing route. I'm going to create one more route which will be related to credits, right? So where we are going to brag about our application, right? So credits, we'll give credits to ourselves. So let's have a credits page also. I'm going to save, go back, and let's test our route. So weather is working fine. Let's see how the pricing is working, not prosing, it's pricing. Let's try that. Pricing, it's working fine. Let's try the another route, which is credits. And credits is also working fine. Cool. So I think if I go back to my notes now, right? So we have covered everything, right? We have created a weather app project, we have installed Express, we have created the Express server, we have set up the URL or a route, and we have started, and we are listening for the request on the server, right? I swapped some of the steps, that's okay, but we have our code ready, we have our server ready, and I would suggest to take a quick pause here, come back, and then we will continue the next topic of this video in the next part of this video. Welcome back. Now, in this part of the video, we're going to see how to serve static content. And we're going to start with HTML. So we are going to return HTML strings. So we'll go step by step and a really simple way, So we'll return the HTML string first, then we will learn how to return JSON data. I'm going to talk about the special variables in Node called name, and there's an underscore there, underscore file name, path node module. We're going to talk about this, and finally, we are not going to return HTML string always. That's not a good idea, right? So we will learn how to return HTML files. So let's get back to our code editor, my code editor basically. So right now, if you see here, right, on my main path, that is the slash, the root path, I would say, I am returning just a string. And in the real world application, we are not going to just return the string. So if I go back to my browser, right now the application is running on localhost 3000. It's not running actually. So somehow my computer got restarted and that's why it's not running. So let me run it again. So I'm going to use nodemon src/app.js. It's running now. If I refresh, see that? Hello from Express. So right now I'm just returning a string, right? Hello from Express. But in real world application, we want to return some HTML data, right? That's what we render into the browser. So you can return HTML using this response.send object, and that's pretty easy. If I want to just return this hello from Express, this message maybe, I'm just going to wrap it around the h1 tag. And this is HTML, right? I'm just returning HTML string which has HTML elements, right? And the text wrapped around HTML elements. Now if I refresh and go back to my browser and see that. So I can return HTML, right? But this is not a good idea, right? I mean, returning HTML strings, because your HTML will be too long, right? And if you plan to write your entire HTML as a string, that won't be that much productive. So we should know a way of returning how we can return the HTML file actually, and that I'm going to cover. But let's go on to the step 2, where we will see how I can return the JSON data. So suppose I want to return the JSON data. Let's do one more practice. I'm just going to take this h1 from here and I'll put it here. So for the weather app also, I'm going to return weather here. So weather just for the practice purpose. And I'll go back to my application and let me try to enter weather weather. And you see that I'm getting the HTML actually, and we can right click and inspect also whether we are getting that h1 tag or not. So you see here, right? I'm getting the h1 tag also. Cool. So now let's see how we can return the JSON data or a JSON data using the response object. So I'm going to use this credit section where I'm going to return the JSON data. Here I'm not using HTML. Here also so I'll keep it. We will actually return the HTML pages. So response.send credits. So instead of sending this string, I'll return back the JSON object. And behind the scene, it's going to get converted into string. It will pass, and we will be able to see that JSON string on the browser. So for the credit section, I'm going to create one object. So suppose name. So we want to give credit to someone like Sandeep. Sandeep has created this website, right? And the role of Sandeep in this project, probably maybe I'll go with web developer role. Cool. So now I'll go back and we have to see whether our server is getting restarted. Yes, restarting due to changes. That's a beautiful thing, which NodeMon is helping us with restarting our server with the file changes. So I'll go back, I'll go to credits, route, and awesome. You see that my name and the role. And if you want to return array also, you can do that. So let's return an array. So I'm just going to wrap this object with an array, something like this. And inside that, I'm going to add one more object. Maybe you have two different developers working on this weather application, right? And one is a web developer, another one is a UX designer. I'm just going to use some name here. Maybe I'll use Sonia. And the role of Sonia in this project is UX designer. Save. Go back to credits page, refresh. See that? I'm getting JSON, but this time it's an array. And you might see like this, I'm sure it's coming, this JSON is coming in a specialized format or some kind of CSS, looks like some kind of CSS is applied to it. It's because of this plugin. So if you want to see the raw one, you click on the raw one. If you click on the passed one, it shows, I mean, it basically passed that, it has passed that JSON string and it has shown it in a much readable manner. Cool. So we know how to return HTML string. We know how to return JSON data. Let's understand the specialized names like directory name and file name. Why we need it? I'm going to tell you this. This is important because we're going to use the path node module to return the HTML files. So all of these steps we need to do to return the HTML files, because this is not good, right? Returning HTML string, writing HTML as a string inside response.send. It's like you're writing your HTML in JavaScript, and that's not a good practice. That will be very frustrating for you to write such big HTML string inside this send call. So I'm going to create a new folder. So let's create a new folder called public. And in this folder, I'm going to keep all of my static content, which I can return, okay, or which I can use, right? So this public folder is going to have a new file. So I'm going to create a new file here called index.html, and let's put some HTML content here. So I'll go with HTML5 template, and let's call this a weather app. And I'm just going to put h1 here with the title of weather app. So now I've created index.html. This index is a specialized name that we use. That's why I have kept it as index.html. Now, instead of returning, so when user is going to hit, or when user is going to visit my localhost 3000, I don't want to return the HTML string. I want to return the actual HTML file, and I can do that with some of these steps, right? So the step one, I would say, is I have created that index.html file inside the public folder. Remember, you have to create inside a public folder, okay? And now we will understand there are a couple of variables like console.log, which we're going to use. So first one is underscore dir name. And there is one more variable which I want to talk about. A special variable is called the file name. So wherever you're writing this code, this console.log, dir name and file name, it's going to return the directory name, is going to return the directory where this app.js is written. Now my app.js is written inside the source directory inside the weather app folder. And this weather app folder is inside my computer, right? And this file name is actually going to return the file name of app.js, fully qualified path name with the file name. Okay, so let's go back to our server, and you see here, right? I'm getting that. So I'm getting the entire path. For the dir name, I'm getting maybe users, Sandeep Gautam, then channel code with Sandeep, GitHub code with Sandeep, node, weather app source. And the file name is again exactly same path, but I'm getting the file name also. Now, why do you need these two variables? Because we are going to use these two variables to return this index.html file, to use this index.html file as a default route, as a main route of our weather application. Okay, so just wanted to let you know about this. I'm going to just comment it, as I'll keep it for your reference here. Okay. And now I'm going to use a specialized npm module called, I'm going to import that first, path. So I'm going to use path because I need to specify the path of this index.html so that, when I'm going to call this default route, it should return the index.html file. So for that, I'm going to import the built-in npm module of Node called path. And now I'm going to use this path to configure the static content. And for that, we use something called app.use. Now you need to remember this. We need to use app.use function and we need to pass some configuration value using express. So I'm going to say express.static. And this function, using this function, so I'm telling express, when you want to refer to any static content, you just go inside this path. Which path? So I'm going to use path dot join. So path is a specialized object used to generate or create the path which we are passing to this express.static, and behind this it's getting used by the app.use function. So I'm just actually telling Node, or telling my application, telling my server, if you need to find the static content, where to go and find those content. So it is inside public folder, right? So that's what I'm trying to achieve here. Okay, so I'm saying path.join. I'm going to say you go inside the dir name. So what is dir name? If I come back here, right, dir name is this one, like my app.js is inside this path, users and the entire path, right, inside source. So this is going to return me, this dir name is going to return me the source folder, this source folder. So maybe it is on server, now it is on my own machine. So it's going to return the folder name of my src. But my public directory is not inside src, right? It's one level up src. So here I have a public folder, right? And inside that I have my static content. So I'm saying path.join and I'm saying dir name, and as join is a specialized function, I'm telling join step up one folder, right? So I'm saying path.join directory name. So source is here. You just go up one folder. So source, it will come here, weather app, right? And then try to find the public folder. And we know, right? So this source, the public is above one level of source, right? So it will get the public folder also. So that's how, my path, my static content path are going to get configured. And now instead of hello from express, I should be able to see the weather app here. So now if I refresh, see that? So now the content is not coming from this app.get function. Even if I remove it, I'm just going to control X. It's coming from this public and index.html. See that? My code is working. So you just need to remember about this dir name and file name variables, the specialized variable, and you need to remember this app.use function and express static path.join dir name and public. And this can be any folder, I would say, but public is a standard way of creating. Public is a standard name for this folder. So I think our path is configured now. Let's return some more HTML content. So I'm going to replace all of my routes, right? So this weather route, I'm going to replace it with index.html. So I don't want to say app.get and then send this HTML, send this static or HTML string. I'm going to create different routes or different HTML files. So for weather, I'm going to create weather.html file. And let's create the HTML5 structure here, and I'm going to call it WETHER. That will be the title, and let's put h1, and I'm going to say weather info. So now if I want to visit this URL, right, I just need to write WETHER, and it's returning weather because I need to remove, I think I don't need this route here now. So maybe I'm going to remove it for now because I want to return the static content. Okay, sorry, I need to write weather.html actually. weather.html, and it's going to return me weather info. So now that content is getting served, right? So I'm going to keep that code actually, because later on we are going to use it, and maybe let's see if it is conflicting. No, it's not conflicting. So let's create another pages. I'll create the pricing page. So let's create the pricing.html. Again, I'll go with HTML5. I'll rename the title to pricing h1 pricing. Let's go and test whether we are getting the pricing.html. Cool. And the last route I have is the credits route, right? Where I'm returning the JSON. So I'm going to create a page for that one also. So this will be credits.html. Again, I'll go with HTML5 template, and I'm going to say credits, the title of this page, heading 1, credits. Save, go back, and let's test credits.html. It's credits. Cool. See that how we have created different HTML files, different routes, right? Multiple routes. So you see here, right? We have index.html, which is our main file or main route, right? Then we have pricing, then we have weather, and then we have credits also. So this is it. I think this is what I wanted to explain in this part of the video, where how to return the static content, and we'll move on and understand how to return or how to use some more static content in the next part of the video. So I would suggest take a quick pause here, come back, and we will continue this video. Welcome back. Now, in this part of the video, we are going to learn about templating, one of the really important concept in the world of server side. I mean, in the world of Node, I would say, or making server side applications. So let's first understand the concept of templating, and then we are going to convert our static content into templates step by step. So we are living in the world of dynamic data, right? So right now, if I go back to my application, we are returning these static pages, this index.html and this h1, right? And this weather app, this is just a text, a static text. Then if I go to pricing credits page or pricing page or even weather.html page, right? These are all static content. So if I go back to my application and you see, right, if I go here on the main page, it's just a static content. And we are living in the world of dynamic data. Like we're using apps like Amazon, Instagram, Facebook, and which has a lot of data which we can search for, right? So we are not going to return the static HTML files. We need a way to combine HTML with data, right? So obviously we are going to take the advantages of HTML. HTML is a great static language, but we need to have the ways of combining it with some data, right? So that's what we can do using something called a concept of templating, where we will we'll take the advantages of HTML as a technology, and we will plus the data. We'll give the HTML file some data, and we're going to get the new HTML back, which we're going to render into our browser. So take the example of this one, right? Maybe I can take the h1 tag, and I'm going to use some specialized syntax, right? If you see here those curly brackets I'm using, right? And this is my data, which is nothing but a JSON data, just JavaScript object, where I have this message attributes. So this is the HTML, this is the data. I'm going to combine it, and this will be the final output. So basically we replace these variables, like message is a variable here, with the value from the object like handlebars. So we're going to use handlebars as a templating engine in our application, in our weather application, and everything we are going to do step by step. So first of all, we are going to install HBS npm module, which is handlebar specially made for the Express server. Then we will set up the view engine in Express, and then we are going to render our views using a render function. So there were some changes which we need to do to render our templates. And then finally, I'm going to tell you how we can render our views using data, render views using not with data, actually data. So we are going to see the example of this actually, where we will have the HTML data and the final output as the HTML. So let's jump into our application. First of all, I'll go to terminal. I'm going to stop my application, clear my console, and first of all, I'm going to install npm install HBS. And I would suggest to you go and install the specific version which is present in my package.json file. So you can refer my package.json file and you can install that version only. But I'm going to install the latest version, whichever version is available today. So this is going to install HBS, and that was pretty quick. I'm going to clear, and now if I go back to my application and if I open the package.json file, see that I have the HBS 4.2.0 version install, and I would suggest you install this version only because they make a lot of changes with the new version, and maybe when you are watching this video, maybe the version is 5, and if you try to use that 5.2.0 version with this version which I'm using, and you are probably you're following along this video and it's not working as expected, so I would suggest to install 4.2.0. Now let's use our templating engine HBS, and that's the second step, right? So we have installed HBS npm module. Now we will set up the view engine in Express, and that's pretty easy. I mean, it's just a one function call, right? So for that, so I'm going to put some comment for your reference. This is for, we did it for static data, right? Configure the static content. I'm going to say configure static content. Now I'm going to say configure view engine, and we are going to use the engine as handlebars. There are other engines also which you can use, but I'm using handlebars. So we use app.set function, which takes two arguments. The first one is view engine, and you need to remember this value. This is pretty important, really important. You need to say view engine, and the spelling should be correct. And the view engine which I'm going to use is HBS, the npm module which we have installed, right? I'm going to save. So this is the step you need to do to set up your view engine. Now instead of rendering these static HTML files, I'm going to render my views. So I'm going to create a new folder. So I'll just try to make it, okay, maybe I'll go here and click here, and I'm going to create a new folder called views. And remember this folder, this is the default folder which our HBS, I mean the view engine, is going to use. So spelling is really important. You need to name it views, and I'm going to create my first view here, or first template here, that's called index.hbs, and voila, see that this is the sign, this is the icon of handlebar. So now I'm converting, basically I'm going to remove my index.html from here. I'm going to delete this file, and instead of using that index.html, I'm going to return the content from my template. And this template is nothing but HTML with combination of some data, as I said, right? So this is my weather apps. I'm going to change the title to weather app. I'm going to save. And now we need to put in some dynamic content here, like, so I'll go back to my notes, right? So we're going to create something like this, where I have the HTML with this special kind of syntax, and I'm going to pass some data to that, and it's going to give me this output, right? So let's pass some data first. So I'll go back to my app.js, and I need to create the default route first, so that I have removed. So app.get. So when I'm going to hit the default route, or maybe let's go with the empty one, and again it's going to get the request, response. This is my callback function which is going to get these two arguments, request and response. And this time, instead of using response.send, there is just one important difference you need to remember. We use a response.render. Okay, not the response.send. Send we use to send HTML data. Render we use to combine our our HTML or our template with data, and I'm going to pass that data. So first argument would be my template name. So in this case, this is my template, right? Index. I don't need to specify .hbs here. You just need to write the view name, and the second is the data. So I'm going to pass some data here, like I'll pass the title, and the title will be weather app. Okay, and I really don't like this. I'll see how to remove that. And the second part would be text, which will be this is an awesome weather app, something like that. I'm just putting some text here. This is an awesome weather app. So weather app title text. Now I'm going to use this object, this JSON object, or this JavaScript object, which is going to get passed, right, by this render method to my index, which is my template, index.hps. So those values, we are going to get those values, that title and text value here. So we need to use that specialized syntax with HTML. So I'm going to use h1 and this special syntax, right? Double curly brackets. And here I'm going to say title, and I'm going to create one paragraph. And inside that, I'm going to have text. Pretty simple, right? So now if I go back to my application, and I don't know, I need to start my application first. So I'm going to say node mon src/app.js. The application is running on localhost 3000. Now if I refresh, I think I'm going to change my text actually inside my index.hbs. Here actually I'm going to say not weather app, but I'm going to say HBS weather app. Let's try this because I need to see the changes, right? So I'm going to refresh this page. See that? We're getting HBS weather app, and this is an awesome weather app which is coming from this data, right? I'm going to remove this, and I'm just going to save and go back and refresh again. So now we are returning the HTML. If I go and inspect, we are returning the HTML, but the final output which is getting rendered into the browser is HTML, but I did it using my template engine, right? So if I go back, I pass some data to my index template or view, right? This title and text, which I'm rendering using this specialized syntax of handlebars. So let's convert our other pages also into templates or views. So first of all, I'm going to pick the weather page. So I'm going to remove this weather.html, and I'll create a new view or a new template for my weather page. So I'm going to say weather.hbs, and again I'm going to use HTML5. Let's give it a title of weather, and again we are going to use the same syntax here, like we'll have a title, and that will be inside my h1 tag actually. So let me start again. H1 with the title and a paragraph with some text, and I'll go into my app.js now, and I have the weather route here. I just need to change this response.render to response.send to response.render, and this time I'm going to call my weather view, and I'm going to pass some title. So I'll say weather info, and I'm going to pass the text. Text will be, maybe I'll say sunny with high of 28 degrees Celsius, something like that, degrees Celsius, 28 degree. I'll go with that only. Okay, so I've created a new view, right, weather, and there I'm passing the title and text. So now if I go back to my application, which is running in the browser, and if I type weather and enter, see that weather info is sunny with high or 28 degrees. I'll make it degrees. Let's do the same for other templates also, and let's do it quickly. So I'm going to remove my pricing page, pricing static HTML page, and I'll create the pricing view here. So pricing.hbs, and again I'm going to have the HTML5, and I'll change the title, and this time I'm just going to copy and paste because I don't want to type again. So where is that pricing? Okay, it's here. I'll paste it, and I'll go back to my app.js, and I have my pricing page, right? So I'm going to copy and paste again. So we use not response.send but response.render. Let's change the route name to pricing, and we'll just say pricing info, and I'll mention our services are free for something like, let's go with the free version first. Okay, now I'll go back and I'll try to visit my pricing page. See that pricing info, our services are free for now. Let's have the last one, that's credits.html. So I have removed the HTML. Our public folder is empty, and I'll create the credits view.hbs, and again HTML5 credits, and again I'm going to copy and paste the title and paragraph. So I'm going to say pricing credits, right? I'll go to app.js credits, and here I'm going to copy and paste again, and this will be my credits, and here I'm going to write maybe credits will be the title, and let's say made with love by code with Sandeep, and you can mention your name here. Actually I'm using code with Sandeep here. Okay, so now if I go back and just final check on the credits page, see that. So in this video, in this part of the video, we understood what is templating, HTML data, new HTML, right? Then, so this is how we do the combination, right? We take the HTML, put some specialized uh, syntax into it, right? And combine it with the data and produce the final HTML output. And we did it step by step, right? We have installed HBS NPM module, set up the view engine in Express. We have rendered our views using render function, and we have render our views using data, right? So I combine these steps, together, something like that. So I think let's have a quick pause here, come back, and we will continue this video in the next part, where probably I'll cover more about templating. Welcome back. Now in this part of the video, we'll continue our journey, and some of the configuration things we are going to see, like I'm going to tell you how to customize the view directory or views directory basically. So by default, we create our templates or our handlebars template or any other template library template, I mean those views, right, inside of views directly. So by default, we create a views folder. So like if I go back to my folder structure, right, I have created all my views inside this views directory, right? But what if you want to configure this directory, right? So that's what we are going to see next. We will see how to create partials using handlebars, I mean views within views. That's the thing. And finally we will create some four page. So someone hits a wrong URL, right, it should redirect them to the 404 page. So let's jump into it. So first one will be configuring our views directory. and it's pretty simple. So I'm putting some notes now. So view engine we have configured, right? So now I'm going to say configure views directory. And how to do that? So to configure a views directory, again, I'm going to use app.set, right? And I'm going to say we need to use this property, right? Views, because I'm configuring the views directory. That's why I'm saying views, okay? And I'm going to use path dot join, and I'm going to join underscore underscore dir name, comma. This time I'll go one level up, and I'm going to use templates folder. So I'm going to rename my views to templates, and inside templates, so right now I'm going to rename to templates. So I'm not going to save. I'm going to rename my views to templates. So let's rename to templates. Okay, and now if I go back in my browser and if I try to refresh, the main page, see that fail to look view index in views directory, because that views directory doesn't exist now, and I have changed it to templates. Now I'm going to save, and now if I go back and refresh, we got it back, right? I'm using the templates directory. So whenever you want to configure or change the views directory to some other folder name, you can use this configuration app.configure configure views directory. I think I did the spelling mistake here. Directory app.set views, and views is a name. It's like a name value pair, right? It's name and this is the value. So this is how you can configure your views. Next step that we need to take is partials, right? So what are partials basically? See, if I go back to my index.hbs, right? In our web application on any website, which static website if you are creating, right, that has something common, right? Like take the example of header and footer. So I don't want to repeat that header and footer HTML again and again. The best idea would be, to create to create the partials or some kind of small component which I can reuse. So we're going to see how we can reuse our handlebar templates using something called partials. So first of all, we need to configure the partials, right, which I'm going to create. So to configure the partials, again, I'm going to go to my app.js and I'm going to write some notes. So I'm going to say configure partials. And to configure partials, now we are using handlebars. So I need to import handlebars. So const hbs, and I'll say require my hbs handlebar object. And I'm going to use this hbs only. And hbs has a function called register partials. So I'm going to use this function, register partials, and I need to just tell handlebars the path of my partial. So I'm going to use path.join, the same way how we did previously, right? The dir name and comma. My partials I'm going to keep inside templates. Inside that, I'm going to create a partials folder. And I'm going to have all my partials inside this folder. So I'm going to create templates, new folder, PARTI partials. Now let's create our partials. So I'm going to say I'll create two different files, header.hbs, and partials again are handlebar files only. So header.hbs, and I'm going to have heading 1. So I'm just going to say weather app from partials. So I've created a partial called header.hbs weather app from partials. I'm just keeping this heading just to show you the changes. Now we have created the partial how to use this partial, right? So say suppose if I open my index.hbs file and I want to show that partial here, you can do that using handlebar syntax only. But some specialized way, you need to use the greater than sign and name of that partial. As simple as that. So that data part we are using the attribute name of that object. But in this case, when you want to import or bring in any partial inside another template, we use handlebar syntax, and inside that we have this greater than sign and then the partial name. Now if I save and if I go back, I see the partial header could not be found. The reason is I need to restart my server, then only it's going to work. So if I restart, right? So I'll say node mon src/app.js. Now if I go back and refresh, it should work. See whether I'm from partials. But now if I do any changes, maybe if I go to my header and I just do some changes, like I'll remove from partial and I'll save. And if I go back, you see that my server is not getting restarted because it's watching only JS, MJS, and JSON file. It's not watching the .hbs file, right? So if I go back to my application and refresh, it's not going to work because it's not watching. I need to restart my server again so that I'll be able to see the changes into my handlebars template. So to make NodeMon aware of the handlebar changes, we need to use a specialized way of running the NodeMon. So to do that, we can say NodeMon, and then I'm going to say src slash app.js, and we need to pass a specialize dash e, and inside that we need to say js, watch the js file, and also watch the hbs file. So let me see if it works. See, it's watching the js and hbs. Now if I go back and refresh, it's going to work, but I'm going to try some changes from header, something like this. If I save and if I go back and refresh, see that it's working fine. So remember this command, right? I mean, maybe you'll make note of it somewhere. This is how you can tell NodeMon which files to watch, which extension to watch, basically. Cool. So we have created our header partial. So I'm going to move this code from index.hbs, because this is what my header is going to be. I'm just going to cut this from here and I'm going to put it inside my header. So where is my header? Okay, here. So I'm going to just paste it here, and I'm going to use some good HTML syntax. So inside header, semantic HTML, I would say, and I'm going to save. So this is my header which I'm using inside my index. So I don't need that text now. I'm just going to have a header. Let's create another partial. So I'm going to create another partial called footer.hbs, and here I'm going to use the footer. Then inside a paragraph, I'm going to just have a hard-coded text for now, made with love from code with, I'll use capital W, Sandeep and team. Cool. So this is going to be my footer. So I'm going to import my footer also. So if you want to import footer, we will use same syntax and footer. So we got the header and footer. Now I'll go back to my main page and refresh. See that weather app and made with love. And we are going to put the content within this header and footer. So this is the advantage of creating templates, I mean partials, which you can reuse, right? So reusability is a really, we have our partials. Now I'm going to move all of these partials into other pages, right? So let's start with the weather.hbs, and here I'm going to remove this, and I'm just going to put my partials. So I'll have a header one here, and then I'm going to have a footer one here. Now let's go back and check. So I'll go back and click on slash WATHER. I did a mistake. WEATHER. Weather info, and made with love from Code with Sandeep. So this weather info is title is coming from if you go back to your app.js, right? So this is coming from the data, right? This title. Now we are not using this text, but I'm going to keep it. So this title is coming there because I have moved that title into my header.hbs, if you see here, right? Let's have a, so this time I'm going to copy and paste. So I'm going to copy this one from here, and let's change into index. Now let's change into credits. So in credits also I'm going to have same thing, header. Okay, I didn't copy the right partial maybe. So I'm going to just copy this, put it into credits, and we are going to do the same thing for the pricing page also. So pricing, so we have header and footer. Let's check. So this is pricing, fine. Then we have a credits page. It's also looking fine. Okay, so we are good with our partials, right? I've shown you how to create partials using handlebars. Now let's move on and see how to create 404 pages. So what is the meaning of 404 page? Let me explain first. So say suppose I do some mistake in my spelling. Maybe instead of credits, I have typed credit. And if I press enter, right? This is not a user-friendly message to the user of the system, right? That cannot get credit. So maybe we can redirect if user does any mistake in the URL, right? We'll redirect user to user-friendly page. A 404 page means we are going to tell the user that you are not at the right page, and maybe we can give the redirection link to other page also. So to do that, we create a 404 page, and I'm going to create my 404 page inside the pages only. So I'm going to do one more change actually. So we have partials here, right? Partials will contain our small part of our pages, right? Now I'm going to move my views, this credits, index, everything inside a views directory. So inside templates, I'm going to create one more folder called views, and there I'm going to move all of my handlebar, templates, right? So this one, don't ask me again, move this one, and the last one also. Okay, so inside this views only, so now we need to do the configuration also. So let me do that first of all. Otherwise I'm going to miss that part maybe. So we need to change the views directory, configure views directory, right? So now right now we have configured our views directory inside templates and inside views, right? So I'm going to save that, and it should work fine. Let's retest. It's working fine. I'll come back. I'm going to create a new view inside my views folder called 404.hbs, and this is going to be a separate HTML page where I'm going to say page not found, and here I'm going to have a heading and some kind of error message, right? So again I'm going to have my same structure. Actually I'm going to use same structure, like I'm going to have a header template partial here. I'm going to import the header partial, that's right, yes, and I'm going to say footer also. So we have our header and footer inside my 404 page, but somewhere here, I'm going to show that error message. So maybe I'm going to have a paragraph, and inside that paragraph, I want to show that error text. So maybe like error, and this error I'm going to pass from my 404 page. I mean, from the app actually. So let's go back to app now, and I'm going to create a new route, and I'm going to create that route at the end, right after all of the different routes. So I'm going to say app.get And this is the special value that we need to give and you need to remember. So if it doesn't match any route, so we are going to use star, a wild card, right? And it's going to get a callback function. And obviously that callback function is going to have a request and response, right? So you need to remember this wild card. So whenever user is going to hit, say suppose not credit, but credits, but credit, it's going to fall back to this because the URL is not matching, right? So it's going to start matching from top. Okay, is it a route? No. Is it a weather? No. Is it a pricing? Is it a credit? No. Or credits, right? And then it's going to fall on this wildcard. So here again we are going to use same thing, response.render, and render function we are going to pass the object where we are going to have a title, and title will be 404 in this case, and I'm going to pass the error, or we're going to say something went wrong, or we'll say we'll have a more meaningful oops, right? You seem to be landed on wrong page. Cool. So this error is going to use this attribute right here to show the error to the user. Okay, now let's go back to our application. Now say suppose I refresh, we don't see anything because obviously I have the root page, right? The main page of my application. Now say suppose I do some mistake, right? Instead of credits, I write credit and enter. See that? The path argument must be of type string, received instance. Now this is a path argument must be of type string, receive an instance of object. Good, this is good. Path argument string. Now what mistake I did in my app.js probably. So I'll go back to my app.js, and I don't think so there is a problem here. It seems to be we have some problem inside our path. So I did some changes here, right? So inside my templates I have created views, and that's what I'm trying to use here. We're using string, that's correct. And let's see what is the error here. The path argument must be of type string. Received an instance of an object valid. Okay, let me look at this error. So what changes we did basically? So I think this change I did, I removed from templates. Let me try to do this now, and if I refresh, my server has restarted, right? So it's working fine. So I did some mistake with my templates and views. So I'm setting templates and views slash. If I type views, it's throwing an error, right? Okay, now it's restarted again. Let's go back and try now. So if I do credit, it's still throwing an error. So maybe the issue is with my new code, right, which I have written here, which is my app.get. I'm using the star here, request to response, response.render. Okay, so I forgot to add the 404 here, right? And that is the required argument, right? I need to pass to the render attribute, right? The page name, that page name which is needed. So I need to render the 404 template here, which I forgot to add. So this is the beauty of, coding live and fixing the issues live, right? So I missed this part. So remember, we need to, when we write a render function, right, the first argument is the page name or the template name, and and the second argument is that JSON object which we need to pass. Okay, so now it should work. I'll go back and refresh and see that it's taking me to the 404 page. So if I type the correct URL, I'll come back to credits, and maybe if I hit any different URL, maybe a test URL, right? you're going to see the 404 page. So I think that's it for this part of the video. We learned how to customize our views directory, create partials using handlebars, and how to create 404 pages. I'm just quickly going to recap. So we have seen some configuration, right? How to configure the views directory. This is the first part, how to create partial and configure partial. So we did some changes in our folder structure. We have created templates folder. Inside that we have created partials, header and footer. And we have seen like how to create 404 pages, to handle wrong URLs while using our application. So let's have a quick pause, come back, and we will continue our journey with Express. Welcome back. In this part of the video, we will continue to build our weather app. So we will build some HTML. I mean, we already have a HTML pages, but we will add some details to our HTML pages, right? So we don't have the navigation for our application, and we will also make it beautiful. So we'll write some CSS. So let's jump into it. And first of all, I'm going to start with my HTML file only. So I'll go into my index.html, and let's have some wrapper here. So I'm going to create a div with a class of container, and I'm going to move my I'm going to have another div which will contain the header part, and I will be keeping the footer somewhere here. Okay, so if I save my file and if I go back to my application, right? So if I delete this one and localhost, so you won't see any changes actually, but we are going to build some things here now inside header, right? I'll go to my header, and here we are going to build our navigation inside my header. So let's do that. So I'm going to have a nav element. So I'm just going to have a nav. Inside that nav, I'm going to create UL, and inside that I'm going to have 5 different LIs, and inside that I'm going to have an anchor tag with href is equals to hash. For now I'm going to press enter. See that? So I don't need 5 actually. I will go with 3 only. So that will be, the first one will be home, the second one will be, so which pages I have. So I'm going to pick those pages only here. So I have a pricing page. So I'll have a pricing, one link for pricing, and the last one would be credits. So I think we won't be needing the weather route because I'm going to use home route only for for a weather purpose. Okay, so I think this is good. So now if I go back to my application and if I refresh, right, you see the navigation, right? So we need to style it. And let me check how my footer is looking. So I'll go into my footer part also, and I'll see whether my footer is the way it should be. So that's inside my partials. So I think it has a footer tag, right? And my index has a container and a header. And what about my header? I'll go back to my header and see whether it is correct semantically or not. So I'll go into partials and check the header. So I have the header tag also. This looks good. Let's write the CSS. So for writing CSS is a static content, right? And that goes under our public directory. So right now my public directory is empty. We started with our HTMLs, static HTML inside a public directory, but we have moved it to templates because we made them dynamic, right? So I'm going to put a new folder here inside my public directory called CSS, and inside that I'm going to create a new file called main.css. So this is my main CSS file, and I'm going to first of all import some fonts. So we are going to use some beautiful fonts from Google Fonts. So I'll visit Google Fonts website, and we will pick some fonts from here. Probably not this one. I'll search for a font called Lato, and we will use this font actually. So maybe I'll select this style, not this one. Let's go with this one also, and let's go with this one also. I think that's it. And you just need to pick this import part. So I'll go to import and I'm going to import this style. So I'll just copy this and I'll come back to my application and paste it here. So that will bring that Lato font in my application. Now, this is not a CSS course actually, so I'm just going to try to explain whatever I can explain. This is more of a Node and Express course, right? So some of the CSS part, I mean, there are a lot of videos around CSS on YouTube. You can go ahead and watch if you don't understand some part of it, right? So I'm going to use a root node. So root is nothing but the HTML. So this is the meaning of this root is nothing but HTML. And here I'm going to create some colors. So I'm going to use some color. So it's always a good idea, when you're making any website or web application, you first of all, you start with a theme for your application. By theme I mean the color theme, right, which are different colors you're going to use. And it's a good idea to have 3 to 5 different colors so that you can mix and match and see how your website or web application looks. So I'm going to pick 3 different colors here. So primary color, so this is nothing but I'm creating the variables, right? So I'm creating a variable called primary color, and the value of my primary color will be, so I have these hash values. So this will be 2C2E43. So this will be my primary color. I will have a secondary color also, which will be, I have the hash values written actually, I'm just trying to check. That will be B2, B1, B9. Obviously I can't remember all of these colors. So, and tertiary color, so I will create third color, which will be tertiary color, the name of that, and it will be hash 595260, 595260. Okay, so I have my 3 different colors. This will give me a opportunity to mix and match colors, and see how my website or web application look. Next, we will style the body element. So I'll go with body element, and I'm going to use a font family first. So let's go with the font family of, obviously, I'll go with Lato. That's what I have imported. This will be my default font. And somehow, if I'm not able to load this font, this will be my fallback font. Next, I'll go ahead with font size, and this is the standard value which I'm going to use 62.5%. So this is more of changing the font size of my body element to 10 pixel, because I'm going to use rem values, and that's a good idea to use rem values. I'm going to say I'm going to give height to my content by 100 viewport height. So it's going to take the entire vertical space of my viewport. And I'll have one more thing called max width, which I'm going to give 1140 pixel. Now you can mix and match these values. I'm using 1140, but that's not a standard way. Let's go with 1040. I think that will look good. 1040 pixel. And I'm going to say margin, or I'll use this value later on, just to show you what is the meaning of margin 0 auto. So if I save and if I go back to my application, actually you actually won't see any changes, right? Because I haven't imported my main.css file. So to do that, I'll go back to my index.hbs file. So this is my main file, and here just before the title, I'm going to add a link tag with a rel value of style sheet, and the href value will be css/main.css. So basically I'm importing my CSS here, and now if I save and if I go back and refresh, see that the font Lato is finally here, and that font has changed our web application or website like completely, right? Now let's start. Let's go back, and now I'm going to show you that part which I was saying. I was saying actually. So margin, I'm going to use margin 0 and auto. So 0 is nothing but margin top and bottom, and auto is automatically take the space on the left hand side and right hand side. So this is more of bringing your main page or a main website at the center of the page. So if I refresh now, see that it's not at the center, but it will come. No worries. So let's move on, and now I'm going to target the container element. So where is my container element? So this is my div with a class of container, which I'm going to target, and I'm going to style it. So let's target the container element, and for my container I'm going to give width of 100%, and I'm going to use display flex. So I'm going to convert my container into a flex box. So if I save this, you'll see something like this. If I refresh, see, by default display flex aligns your item. So I have this as one of the item, this navigation is another item, and this footer. So basically we'll take header and footer are the two boxes, right? And by default it is aligning those two boxes on the horizontal direction. So by default flex direction, there is a property called flex direction is row. I'm going to change it to column, because I want to align my boxes, my elements, header and footer vertically, right? Now if I go back and refresh, you'll see the same thing. And I'm going to give height to my container also. So I'll give it 100% height of my viewport. So I'll go with percentage value here. And now if I save, you won't see any difference. Now let's move on and target our heading, that is h1. So if I go to index, I have this header, right? And this header is nothing but my partial. So I'll go into my partial header.hps. I'm going to target this title. So that would be header. I'm keeping it really simple. I'm not using class name or IDs because this is really simple web application. So my h1 is going to have a font size of, I'll go with 4 rem value, which is a good big value, I would say. And let's give it a color. Let's start using our color. So if you want to use the variables, right, these are all the variables with the name and value pair, right? And if you were to use any variable, you just need to use this var function and pass the variable name value. So I'm going to use primary color value here. And that primary color, it's going to grab that variable name and put that value here. So my heading is going to have a 40 pixel font size, and the color is my primary color. Okay, let's move on. And now I'm going to target my navigation basically. So let's target the nav. So to target the nav, I'm going to target the nav element. And for the nav, I'm going to say border bottom. I'll go with 2 pixel value solid. And let's have some color for my border. So I'm going to use the secondary color for my border, and I'm going to have some padding bottom value of 0.5 rem. Just to add some spacing, right, to my navigation. So if you see here, right, this is my navigation. So I just put this border, just to separate my content, and you see, right, now things are at the center. So let's target the navigation now, right? So inside my nav and UL element, right? So I'm going to target the UL, and the first property would be, I'm going to use list style of none, because I don't want to show those circles, those bullets, right? So I've removed those bullets. I'll remove some margin and padding also. So margin of 0, padding of 0. So I don't want to have margin and padding for my navigation. And here also I'm going to use display flex. So once I do this, if I go back and refresh, you'll see something different, right? Now it's aligned horizontally, right? So by default flex direction is row. That's why all these elements are coming like this. Now I'm going to give some font size to my navigation, and I'll go with 1.5 rem value. Let's see how it looks. Cool, it's looking good. let's target the anchor tags now. So nav, ul, li, and a. And I'm going to remove the underline which is coming. And let's add some margin right also, because I need to have some spacing around my anchor elements. And this time I'm going to change the color also. So let's go with the variable value of, I'm going to use tertiary color this time. Save. Now if I go back, see that? It's looking beautiful, right? So this is more of my simple navigation, and I need to link it actually. So I think I have created my anchor tag, but I didn't link it. So I'll go into my header partial, and let's give it some links, right? So this will refer to my home page, this will refer to my pricing page, and this will refer to my credits page, right? Now if I refresh and if I click on pricing, see that? But I don't have the CSS imported in pricing page, that's why you won't be able to see it, and we'll do that. That part we will complete. So now I'm at the home page, and on the home page, I basically want to show some kind of form where user is going to enter the name of the city and hit on search button, and my that will bring in my weather information about that city. So let's write the markup for that. So that will be inside my index here. That markup is going to come. So I'll just go below my header and I'll create a form, and action will be nothing for now. Inside that form, I'm going to have an input, type text. I'm going to put some placeholder, and the name, or I'll say just enter city name. Enter city name. I'm going to have one more input. Type would be submit, and value would be search. Okay, so now if I save and if I go back and refresh my home page, see that we got that form, right? Now let's style this form. So I'll go into my main.css only. So where is my main.css? It's here. Let's style the form first. So I'm going to target my form element, and let's add some margin, some spacing. So I will use margin top this time, and let's give it a value of 5 rem. Let's say that's a big value, but that will give us a good spacing, right? So okay, so this is looking good. Now let's target the form and input element, and let's change the font size first. So I'm going to say font size of 2 rem, and let's add some padding also around my input element, so that would be 0.5 rem. Refresh, see that? It's looking beautiful, right? The application is coming up, right? Next, I'm going to target my submit button. So how to target the submit button? I'm going to say form input, and this time I'm going to use attribute selector. So type is equals to submit. So if I'm targeting the input element with the type of submit, you can use something like this also if you want. Okay, so I'm targeting the input element with the attribute selector, type as submit, and let's change the background color. So I'll go with the secondary color this time. Let's add some border radius also, maybe a very small value of 0.25 rem, and I'm going to say cursor pointer. So that cursor pointer, it's going to bring this cursor, this pointer cursor, right? So it indicates like this is a clickable entity to the user, right? I will use some border value also, maybe let's change the border color also. Though we have a property of border color, yes, and maybe I'm going to go with same value. save, go back, refresh. Okay, I think this is looking beautiful now. So I can click on search button, I can enter the city name and I can click on the search button, and that functionality we are going to write later on. So this looks good. Maybe I'll change the color. Let's try the color also. I'll just go with a white color and let's see how it looks. Looking well, I would say, but I'll go with the black color only. That was looking much better. Let's refresh. Cool. Now the final part. Let's target our footer element, right? And let's style it. So I'm going to target my footer element. Let's add some margin so that it will have some spacing. So I'll go ahead with 5 rem value. Let's add some margin bottom also. So I'll use a margin bottom of say 5 rem again, and font size would be 1 rem. I'll give it a color of var, and this time I'm going to use secondary color. Next we will have the border top, that will be 2 pixels solid, and again I'm going to use secondary color. If I save, go back and refresh, see that it's looking beautiful, right? So now the thing is, or the final thing I would say, I want to bring, or I want to push this footer at the bottom of the page, right? I mean, footers are mostly, they are at the bottom of the page. So my container, right? So I have my containers. I'll show you the structure. So I have my container, which is display flex, and it got 2 different flex items, this one and this one, right? And my flex direction. So I'll go back to my CSS. For the container is column, right? So I can use something called a flex grow property, to just push my content. So I'll go back to my index. So this div, right? I can target this div. I'm going to give it a class name actually of header. Okay. Or maybe I'll call it main. So we can target the main, and so I can say dot main. I can target the main element, and I can use that flex grow property of 1. What it is going to do basically, so I have 2 different children inside. So I'll go back to my applications. I have 2 different children. This is the first child and this is the second child. So what I'm saying, so think like this is the first box and this is the second box. So I'm saying, hey, the first box, you take the entire space. So whatever space is available to me. So I have this much space available, right? And I'm saying, hey, box 1, you take the entire space, and whatever space is available, just let that space be used by footer. So if footer is like this much, it has a height of this much, right? It's going to take that much space, and the rest of the box is going to take this space until here. So that's going to push my footer at the bottom. And let's do that. I'm going to save and I'll go back and refresh. See that? This is looking beautiful, right? I have some margin also at the bottom, and my city is coming at the center. And now I think we need to change, we need to import our CSS into different pages, right? So let's do that. So I need to go back to let's go to credits page first. I'm going to copy and paste from the index.hps. I'm going to copy this from here. I'll paste it inside my credits page. I want to paste inside my pricing page, and I'm going to delete the weather route because I don't need it. So I'm going to delete this one now. And let's see in my app.js if I'm referring to weather route, right? I will be deleting that also. So we don't need this also. So let's do some cleanup, right? Now if I go back and now if I refresh and if I go to pricing page, see that pricing info, credits. So we need to build these pages also, and we will do that first of all. So I think our home page is ready. We'll see. I mean, probably at the end of the video, I'll add some dummy text into pricing and credits page also. But this is what I want to show you. I mean, writing HTML, then how you can make your pages beautiful by writing CSS. This is what I want to cover in this part of the video. So if you see here, right, we have created a CSS file inside the public folder because CSS is nothing but a static content, right? And we have moved our HTML out of public folder because they are now dynamic content, right? And that we did in the previous part of the video. So I think this is getting long. It's a good time to take a quick pause, come back, and we will continue to build. We will continue to add dynamism to our weather app. Welcome back. Now, in this part of the video, we are going to do something really special. We are going to create our own API point. I mean, we are going to create a weather API point so that, we can get the weather data and we can pass that data to our client side or the web, right? So let's see what we are going to do in this video step by step. So first of all, we are going to create an API endpoint to get the weather data. I'm going to explain, like, we will understand the query string parameters, and we're going to pass the query string data because we need to have that location, right? So we're going to pass that location. We're going to use Axios to load weather data from this weather API service. So this is a free weather API service which we are going to use. Obviously, I'm not going to start from scratch, right? We are going to rely on someone who is we are going to rely on someone who is specialist in giving that data. And this is how it is going to work in as a high level picture, right? So we are going to create a /weather API endpoint and inside our node actually, and we are going to use Axios. Now Axios is pretty popular and really nice library or npm repository to to use to send get request, post request on the server and other types of request. So this is how it is going to work. We're going to create this API endpoint. We're going to use Axios. We'll send a request with a query parameter. Like I say, suppose I want to I want to see the weather right now, the weather in Mumbai, right? I'll query Mumbai and I'm going to hit the weather API, open weather API. We're going to get the response, and in the next part of the video, we will render that response on our user interface. I mean, here. So right now, what I want to do actually. So this is how the high level picture is. Let's start with step one. So we're going to create an API endpoint to get the weather data. So I'll go back to my code and let me close this one. Okay, so I'm going to create. So last time I think I have removed that weather API, but I'm going to create it again. So we're going to have an API endpoint here. So I'll say app.get. So this will be a get API. The first one will be the endpoint. So I'm going to create a weather, which is going to return me the weather data for a particular city, particular location. It's going to take a callback function as usual. And I'll put semicolon here. And it gets two different parameters, like the request and response. So until now, right, we were working on this response object only, where either we are using that response object to render the data using the templates, or we have seen like we have used response.send. So I can use this response.send method to send the HTML, to send the JSON data. So we need to use kind of a send only, but this time I'm not going to return the hard-coded data, but I'm going to read my request parameters, because this is what I want to do actually. If I come back to my browser, right, I'm going to hit this weather API. So my localhost 3000, I'm going to say weather, not this one, /weather. And then I'm going to ask a question. It's like, asking a question to the server. Hey, can you give me the weather of, so I'm typing location equals to, say, suppose Mumbai. So I'm saying, hey, weather service, or this is a resource or something on the server side, right? I mean, some kind of resource who is where I'm asking question, can you give me the weather of this location, Mumbai? If I press enter, I'm not going to get anything back. I'll get back the 404 error, and I think we forgot to include the CSS file there. So we will include that. So I'm asking for a location Mumbai and it's a weather. I can pass multiple parameters also by separating them with and signs. I can say location Mumbai and maybe like some test argument, test equals to maybe hello, something like this. So I can append multiple arguments here and I can get the data back. But in our case, right, we just need to pass the location. But if you want to pass multiple values also, you can do that using the and, separating them with and. Okay, so when I'm going to hit this location weather API, right, and when I say location is equals to Mumbai, I want my API, and I don't know if my application is running. It is running, and it's taking me to the page not found because I haven't saved the file. So basically, we are hitting this API and we are sending a request. And how can I grab this location equals to Mumbai? To grab that location equals to Mumbai, I can use this request parameter, right? Request argument, which is called, which is passed to this callback function. So let's do that. So I'm going to send some hard-coded response for now. So maybe I'll just send the location back. Location, and I'll hardcode the value for now, Mumbai, something like this. So this is the response I'm sending, and here I'm going to do the console.log first, and let's see what we get in the request. So I'm just going to, so we can read those arguments using something called request dot query. So query is an object which will contain all the values, all the name value pair, or all the query string parameters. Now saved my file. I'm going to refresh and see that I'm getting the hard-coded response back. But if I go back to my terminal, see that location Mumbai. So we are getting those query string parameters. We can read those parameters using something called a request, right? I can pass multiple parameters. So let me just show you that example also. So Mumbai, and maybe I'll pass some test parameters for now. Test is equals to test, something like this. If I hit enter now, and if I go back to my terminal, you see that location and test. Now I'm going to read this location, this location value. I need this value, right? And I need to pass it to weather API to load the actual weather data. And we can do that, and we'll see how to do that. So we understood what is query string parameters, right? Now I'm going to pass the query string data first, and then we will send it to weather API to get the weather data. So let's pass the query string data first. So I'm going to write some conditional code here. We'll say if request dot query dot location, if we are getting the location, right? So I'm going to negate this condition. If someone hasn't given me the location, right, we are going to return response dot send, and we'll throw an error basically in this case, right? So we will just pass error object, and we'll say to the user, please enter valid location. Okay, so let's test this code. I'll go back to my browser, and I'm going to enter something like this. See that? Please enter a valid location, because I haven't entered a valid location. Now if I say Mumbai, I'm getting Mumbai. Okay, and here instead of using location, I'm going to pass this. So let's create a variable for this. If you're using it multiple times, it's good idea to create a variable like location is equals to this, and I'm going to say check for the location, and I'll pass the location here. Okay, so this is my if part where I'm checking if not location, please enter a valid location. That's the response I'm sending back. What if user is sending the right value like Mumbai, right? We need to have that weather data, and for that we're going to use Axios to load the weather data from weatherapi.com. Okay, so first of all, we're going to search for something like weather API free on Google, and I'm going to use this one, free weather API, and this is pretty easy and very nice API, free API. I would say we can get started free. So first of all, you need to sign up for this API. So get started free is written here. Just click here, and they're asking to sign up. So maybe I'll sign up using one of my email ID. So let me try this email ID, and that is okay. So maybe I'm going to use password. Just go with this one. I am not a robot. I have read sign up. So once you sign up, you're going to get back the verification email. But I don't think so. We need that. I mean, you can go and check the verification email. You just need to log in with your email ID, and I'll remember. I ask them to remember me next time. Okay. So the most important thing is this API key. So I'm going to copy this API key because I will need it. Okay, so we will need this API key only. So this is copied, right? And I'll go back to my code actually. And somewhere, I'm going to keep this API key. So maybe I'll put some comment here, and I'll keep that API key. So we're going to use this API key because I'm going to hit some URL. So I'll go back to its documentation maybe, right? So we don't need to work on API Explorer. So I'll go to API Explorer. I think this is so I'll go to docs, and this is a getting started guide. So we are going to use this API, right? This is the API. This is what this URL we are going to hit, and this is the API method which we are going to use to load the weather data, and I'll show you how we can do that. And we are also going to use Axios because to send a request to any third-party API, we have to use Axios. We can use Axios. Axios is one of the option, but there are other options also, like you can use fetch also. Probably fetch should also work in Node, but I'm using Axios. So we need to install Axios first. So I'll go back to my application. I'm going to stop it. Let's write clear, and I'm going to say npm install Axios dash dash save. And I would suggest you use the @ and check the version in my package.json file and use that version, because these versions keep changing. So I would suggest to use that version. Okay, so Axios is installed. I'm going to restart my application. Now we're going to use Axios to contact the weather API and get the weather data back. So I'm going to have my Axios first. So I'm going to load Axios here, const Axios. So let's import it first, require, and I'll say Axios. So this will bring me the Axios, and we will go through some documentation also, right? So I always do, I just go to any of the npm link, and it's always a good idea to go through the documentation. So this is a docs website. We can get started. Just click on the get started guide. So see, they've given all the instructions, right? I mean, even if you don't remember how to use it, right, you can just go through the documentation. So let's see the minimal example, and you see that, right? I am just importing something like this, require, and we're going to use get function because I want to hit that weather APIs, and I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to use this example. So we are going to use async await syntax, and this is how we are going to get the data back from the weather API service. So let's do that. So I'm going to write a function. In our case, we are going to write a function inside our weather API. Where is it? Where it is weather. Okay. So here I'm going to write a function. Say I'll call it async function. So we are going to use the async behavior, and something got imported which I don't want. I want to remove this. Okay, so async fetch weather, and there should be function actually. Function which we are going to call, and here I'm going to write the try catch block, right? So try and catch. So if we got any error, we are going to get that in the E object. So I'm going to try. So we're going to use this example only, right? So response, I'm just going to copy this line from here. It's pretty easy, right? This is how we do it. Response, so await. So when we write any function as async function, right? So this is more of a asynchronous function. So when it will start executing until we get the response, right? It is going to wait. So it's not going to wait basically. So everything will run, but once we get the response, right, we can do whatever we want. So await, now it is going to send the request, and we need to use that URL which I have shown there. So we're going to send a get request to our weather API, and I'm going to create the URL variable also here. That will help, we will say URL, and let's copy that URL from weather API. So we're going to use this URL, http :// API weather API.com version 1. Okay, so this is the URL I'm going to use, and I want to pass some arguments, right? That location, and how we can pass that location, right? So to do that, I can pass a config object, and that config object is going to have something called params, and that params are nothing but we want to pass the key. That's why I told you to register, because we need to pass this key just to avoid, because they don't want anyone who is coming to the site and hitting their API, right, and bringing down their service. That's why they have created this API key, and there is a limitation like how many number of time we can hit that API in a day. So we need to pass the key. Without key, you're not going to get the response back. And the query. So the query is Q, and that will be our location. So what I'm saying here basically, right? So I'm saying xyours.get, I'm hitting the weather API, and I'm sending the key. Okay, this is the key. Take the key and take this location and send me the response. Now that response will be weather for that particular location at that particular time. So I'm going to say console.log, and we just need to see what response we are getting. Okay, and if we get any error, we're going to say console.log log the e. Let's keep our fingers crossed and let's see if it works, right? So I don't need the API key, this comment now, because I have already added it. And we need to call the fetch weather basically. So we haven't called this asynchronous function. So fetch, I'm going to straight away call that function here. Actually not here, I'm going to cut it from here and I'll paste, because once we have the location value, then only we are going to call the fetch weather, right? And in case of error, we are returning this. Now we are fetching the weather, and we are seeing whether we are getting data back or not. So let's test this code first. So I'll go back to my terminal. I don't see any errors. Now I'll go back to my application and let's try for location Mumbai. Refresh. And if I go back to my terminal, see that? We're getting the data back. And where is the data for ours? There is a weather data. So I need to just try to find out where is that weather data. So we are not getting data back. So data is empty, and I think that's the value I'm looking for. So we are not getting data for Mumbai. Let's try again, maybe with something like this. Maybe I'll go with a small value, Mumbai. If I refresh, so request is going right, and okay, so we are not getting the data back. Why we are not getting the data back? I need to check. Let's come back to our code. So query is location we are getting here, right? And that's what I'm passing as a query. Okay, so I think I didn't use the right API, right? So HTTP API, weatherapi.com version 1, but I need to hit not this one. Actually, I need to hit the actual API. And where is the actual API? This current.json, right? So I forgot to add this one. That this will return the current weather data. So we need to hit this URL current.json, and we need to pass the key and location. Now we should be good. Let's try again. Refresh. I'll go back to my terminal, and this time if you see, right, I'm getting the data back. So this is my current temperature in degrees Celsius, right? I'm getting the condition object also. So I'm going to return all of this data on the browser, right? I just want to see like how it is working. So let's do that. So I'm going to extract my response object, and I'll send the response back here. So I'll say response dot send, and as we are getting the weather data back from the weather API service successfully, we need to send that data back to the browser, right? And we can do that. So I'm going to send, first of all, I'm going to send the location. So for which location I got the data back. So let me do this way. Actually, I'm just going to remove this for now, and I'm going to destructure my response, this response object, and I'll create some variables like constant. So I'm going to destructure my response dot data. So if you come back here, right, I'm going to destructure this data.location, and I'm interested in which values. I'm interested in name, region, and country. So I'll destructure that name, region, and country. Okay, and based on this, I'm going to form my location value. So location is, I'm going to say, I'm going to use my template literal here. Location will be name. So name comma space region comma space country. So this is how I'm going to show my location. The next thing is we need to pass the temperature value, right? So I'm interested in temperature value, which I'm going to get from the current object, current and temp C. So let's do that. Again, I'm going to use destructuring here, and I'm going to, this time I'm going to destructure my response dot data dot current. Okay, and I'll grab the temp underscore C value, and I want to grab the condition value also, which is an object. So let's see what values we get in the condition, and I'm going to pass that. So I'll pass the current. So current will be my current temperature, that will be temp underscore C. So this is the value, right? And if you want, you can just rename, rename. I'll go with temp underscore C only, just to keep things simple. And we will pass the condition also, condition, and that will be condition, something like this. Now let's see how it works. So I'm searching for, let's try the fail cases first. So I will not pass the location value. We're going to please enter valid location. Say suppose I pass Mumbai. We're just getting location Mumbai back. It should have returned actually the response which we are getting here. But somehow I think it's calling this also. So let me, we are calling the fetch weather, and we must be getting some error also probably here, right? Because cannot send headers after they are sent. So let me remove this code, because this response.send is also getting executed, and after that this response.send is also getting executed, because this is asynchronous call. So it depends, like when I get, so I don't know the timing, right? Sometimes it take time to get the data back from the weather API. So what is happening here, basically we are calling the fetch weather. Now this is asynchronous function, so it's going to do its work, but at the same time we are returning this hard-coded value of location also, right? So after some time we got the data back from the weather API, and again we are returning the response. That's why we are returning multiple responses after some time, maybe in some time intervals. That's why it's giving me this error, cannot set headers after they are sent to the client. So when you see this error, this is a solution, I mean, one response, you should send one response back to the client from the server. Now it should work. Let's try. Refresh. See that? Location Mumbai, Maharashtra, India, current temperature, and I'm getting the condition also. It's clear, and I'm getting some icon also, which we're going to use in the next part of the video. Okay, so we are getting the data back, but we need to have some more changes. Like I would like to return the error also. Say suppose we get some error from the service, right? So in that case, I'm going to return the error. So response.send, and I'm going to send an object. So in this case, I'll say maybe I'll pass the error object only. Something went wrong. Please try again later. So if something goes wrong with my, something is going to wrong with my weather API service, right? I'm just going to respond with this error message. Okay, looks good. I mean, this function is long. The good idea would be to take this fetch weather API, I mean fetch weather function from here, and put it into separate file. Let's do. I mean, we will do that. I'll try to see if we can have a refactoring also in this video, and I'll try to refactor some of the area of our code. But I mean, as a start, I mean, just to get started, you can have your code, you can have this function written inside this weather API endpoint only. So this looks good. I think we are getting the data back also from the weather API. Now we have the data, right? So probably in the next part of the video, we will see how we can render this data on our user interface, because because I wanted to show you something, right? I'll go back to my home route. So what I want to do next is I'm going to enter some value. I want to enter, because obviously you're not going to write that location equals to Mumbai there, right? We are going to grab that Mumbai value. When I hit search, basically I want to pass that location to that weather API endpoint, get the data back, and show that data here. That will be more interactive for the user, right? So that's what we are going to do in the next part of the video. Let's have a quick pause. I think this is getting longer. Quick pause, come back, and we'll continue to build our weather app. We'll show the weather data to the user on the interface, on the UI. Welcome back. So now our weather API is ready in Node, and we are returning this data. Basically, when I'm hitting this weather API, right, from the browser, if I go back to browser, right, from my application by specifying the URL, right, WEATHER maybe, and then question mark, and then location is equals to, let's try with Mumbai, and I'm getting the data back from the node server, right? And this is the current temperature. But we are not going to show the data something like this to the user. This doesn't look good. So basically we have this is our version, right? So we have our weather API, which is using the Axios. We are querying to the open weather API, which is returning the data. Now we are going to add front end to our API. I mean, we are going to hit this API, this weather API, which was created by us in the last part of the video. We are going to hit this API, and it's going to again do the same thing, right? Get the data, and it's going to return the data back to the browser. And then we're going to leverage that data. So obviously we're getting the data back, leverage that data to show on the UI to the user interface. So how it is going to work, basically, I'm going to enter some things. I'll go back to my main route. That's this one. I'm going to enter something here like Mumbai. I'm going to click on search, and it's going to bring me back that data from the weather API, and I'm going to display that data here, somewhere here below, right? So this is how it is going to work. So step one, would be we are going to add a JavaScript file. So we are going to use JavaScript to connect with our weather API. So we're going to use fetch, which is a built-in method in JavaScript to call the APIs. We're going to get the data back, and then we're going to use DOM manipulation to display that data in the browser. So let's jump into it. Let's start coding. So I'll go back to my code editor, and here the thing which we need to code is basically, so I'll go to my index.hbs. So this is a file where I need to include that JavaScript file. So first of all, let's create the JavaScript file that I'm going to create inside my public. So I'll hit the public folder, open the public folder, and I'll create a new folder here called JS. So first of all, let's see how to include a JavaScript file in a node project. I mean, this is a node project, and we keep our static content inside the public directory. Now JavaScript, I wouldn't say it's a static, but we keep our JavaScript files inside the JS folder, inside the public folder. So I mean it can be considered as a static file to add a dynamism to our application. So I'm going to create a new JavaScript file here. I'm going to call it main.js, and let's do a simple console.log just to see our file is working or not. So I'm going to say main. Now let's include this JavaScript file, and I need to include this JavaScript file inside my index.hbs. This is where I have my form, and this is where I'm going to add that I'm going to show the weather data to the user, right? So I'm going to include JavaScript file here just before the ending body tag. And to include a JavaScript file, we use something called a script tag, and src is equals to the location of my file, right? So I have my JavaScript file inside js/main.js. Okay, so it's inside js/main.js inside my public, right? I'm going to save, and let me see if I'm getting the file. I'm getting the output. So I'll go back to my weather app, right click, inspect, go to the console panel, and refresh the application. See that? This means our JavaScript is included in our project, right? Now I'll go back to my JavaScript. I'm going to remove this main because I don't need it anymore. Now I'm going to target some of the elements in my main index.hbs file, right? So I need this form, right? And on this form this action, right? So there is an event. So when we submit a form, it triggers an event called a submit event. So first of all, I need to target this form, get the value of that form, that element, and then I'm going to listen for that submit event. So to do that, I'm going to use some of the DOM functions provided by JavaScript. So let's first create a const variable. I'm going to call it form, element. So this is, I can call it weather form element also, but I have only one form inside my application. So I'm going to call it form element. And to grab the form element, we can use document.query selector. But just to query my form, right? First of all, I'm going to give it a class name. I'm going to use class name to access my DOM element. So I'm going to call it weather form. I'm just going to copy this one from here. You can give the IDs also if you want, but I'm giving class because we can use classes to style in the CSS. So document.query selector is a function name which you can use, this one, and then you can pass that class name value using dot control V. If you want to target the IDs, we use hash. When we target with class, we use dot. So we have a form element now. I'm going to listen for the event. So form element dot, to listen for an event, we can use a function called add event listener. The first argument will be submit. This is the name of the event. So submit is the name of the event. And the second is a callback function. And it gets something called event as an argument. I'm just going to do the console.log just to see if I can list, if my event, the submit event is working fine. So form submitted, something like this. We'll just try. So let's go back to our application. I'm going to refresh and let me try to enter some value like Mumbai, and I'm going to hit enter. See that? I'm getting the value form submitted. That means when I'm clicking on search, I'm getting the output. That means my submit event is working as expected. Now somehow I need to grab this value, right? This value, because I need to pass that value to my weather API. So let's do that. How can I grab that value so I can target that element, right? So this element is nothing but this input field, and that input field is inside my index.hbs. So I'm going to target this input, right, which has a placeholder value. So maybe I'm going to name it. So let's give it a class name of this is a search input, right? So I'll say it's search input. Okay. And I can target it. So again, I'm going to copy and paste this line just to save some time, right? So I'm going to say this will be my search element, and I'm going to search for the, let's copy and paste from here only, search input. So search input, I'm going to save. Now I can grab its value. So form submitted, I'm going to just do the console.log first. Search element dot value. If you do this, and value is a property, let's try that. Refresh. I'm going to hit Mumbai. See that? I'm getting the value, right? Maybe let's try some other values like Pune. We're getting the value. Now we're grabbing the value. We're getting the value from the input field. I would pass this value to my weather API, which I've created inside my app.js, right here, this weather, right? And I want to have that weather data in my front end, in my JavaScript file, so that I can again target my elements, which I'm going to create, and display that weather on the UI, right? So I'm going to remove this console.log because we are getting the value, right? Now I'm going to use something called fetch. Now fetch is a function which we can use to fetch data from the server side. So we can hit the REST APIs or any API endpoint and we can grab the data. In our case, I'm going to hit my weather API, the slash weather, which will return me the weather data. So I'll go back to main.js fetch. So the first argument is the URL. So I'm going to use template string. So my URL is nothing but weather because this is local to my application, right? So I'm going to just say slash weather. You don't need to write something like localhost 3000 because our application is running on localhost 3000. So you can hit any API by just saying like slash and the API name. So in our case, it's weather. Now our weather need the name of the location, right? So I'm going to ask that question, right? Question, and it wants the location as a query string argument. So location equals to, now in this case, I need to grab my location from my search element, right? So I'm going to say search element dot value. So this is going to form that URL which we were forming here, right? By writing by ourselves. So this is going to form that URL. So slash weather location is equals to search element dot value. Now this method is asynchronous method. So it returns, it's like a promise, right? So I'm asking for something like, say, what is promise basically? So we take the example of ordering a pizza, right? I can place an order for pizza and I can wait. I can watch movie. I can go for a walk. And after the pizza has came to my house, right? They will call me. Okay, you have your pizza ready now. Please uh, have it. Something like that. So fetch. So I'm asking whether, hey, can you give me the weather data back? But as long as weather data is not returned to me, as long as it is not served, it is not returned back from the server, I can do other things, right? My code will keep running. So that's like a promise. So we chain promises something like this. We use something called then function. So when I'm going to get back the data, it's going to call this then function. Okay, and it's going to return us a response. We don't need this response actually. It's going to return us a response, and we need to convert this response into something called a JSON object. And to do that, we use something called response.json function. Now this is going to return me the JSON object because somehow we are getting the string. And then again, I'm going to chain it with another then, which is going to give me the data back, right? And I can use that data now to do whatever I want to do. So I'm going to just console.log this data. So just say data. See that? The fetch, I'm fetching the weather API, passing the location and the search element dot value. I got the response. Response we need to convert into JSON. We do that something like this. Then again chain it with then, and finally we got the data. The response.json, whatever response.json is going to return back, right? That's a JSON object. That is data, and I'm just logging the data. So let's see that how it works. I'll go back to my browser and I'm going to refresh, and let's try with Mumbai, and I'm going to press enter. See that? We're getting the data back for Mumbai, the condition object, right? The current value and the location. We're getting everything back, right? And now it's in my console. I'm getting those values. Now I'm going to store those values, and then I'm going to use those values to display here. There's one more thing I would like to highlight is something called a catch function. So in case of any error, we're going to use this catch function, which is going to return us an array object. And this is not a syntax actually. So catch is a function. So it is going to have a callback, something like this. Okay, it's going to give me the error, which I can use, for now. I'm just going to console.log my error. Something like this. I'm going to save. So our fetch function is almost ready, right? We're getting the data back. Now somehow, I need to grab the values from the data. So I'm going to go grab those values. So we have a condition object, right? We have current. So I need this location, I need this current value, and I need this condition text. So I'm going to form two different strings here. And I want to use those two different strings basically. First of all, we'll go back and create the user interface for this. So somewhere here, just below the form, I want to show my weather data. So I'm going to say dev, and this is going to have a class of weather info. I'll say weather info. And inside this div, I'm going to put two different paragraphs. The first one will be which is going to have a class name of location. Second one is going to have a class name of current. Okay, so this is going to say the current weather. I'm going to have one more paragraph basically for the error. We want to show the error also, right? So location, current, and error. These three different paragraphs I'm going to target now, first of all. So let's do that. So I'm going to grab all those elements here. So first one will be location element. So I'm going to say last name of location. The next one would be current element. And the class name is current. And the last one would be error element. And this will be error. So now I have grabbed all those HTML elements because I'm going to target them to show my weather data, right? So we need a user interface, right? To show our weather data. So we're getting the data back. So I'm going to extract this data now from this object. So to do that, I'm going to use object destructuring. So I'll say const and I'm going to destructure my data. Okay. So the first thing I need is current. I need location also. And I need condition also, but from the condition, actually, I need this text value, right? So I'm going to grab the condition only. Let's go simple condition. So I have these three different values now, right? I'm going to remove my console.log. I don't need it. And I'm going to target my DOM elements now. So first of all, I'm going to clear the error because obviously when I have a successful data back from the server, I'm going to clear. So there is a property called text content, which I'm going to make empty. So initially, I know this is an empty paragraph now. If you go back here in index.hbs, it's just an empty paragraph. But the reset is needed because in case of error, right, I'm going to show the error. So I'm going to clear the error also. But that error is going to come as a part of data. So maybe I'm going to start, first of all, let's show, I don't want to confuse you. First, let's start with location element probably. So let's start with location element and I'm going to say dot text content. This is a property. And what's the location value? We can use location here, something like this. So this is a location value. Next, I want to show the current and I want to combine the current value and a condition value, right? So I'm going to use current element for that. Dot text content. So I'm going to say my object literal, and then first I'm going to show the current, that is my temperature, right? And then I'm going to have comma, and then I'm going to say condition, and inside condition I have a text, right? Let's see the output in the browser. So I'll go back, I'll refresh, search for Mumbai, enter, and cannot set properties of null text content. So something is wrong inside my main.js. Cannot set properties text. Of null setting text content. Okay, so what's wrong with I'm getting the data, I'm getting the current. Okay, I'm using location here, that's correct. Grabbing from here. Location element dot text content is location. Current element dot text content current, and then I'm using the condition dot text. Which line number I'm getting the error? 14, 36, line number 14. So this is the issue, right? Okay, I have a typo here. So location. Okay, I'll refresh. Let's try with Mumbai again. Enter. See that? I'm getting the data back, but the font size is really small. So we'll go to our main.css, right? And let's do some styling. So dot weather info. I'm going to grab my weather info, right? We're going to give it some margin top, right? So margin, okay, what am I doing? Margin top, I'm going to go with a 3 rem value. Let's see. And now I'm going to target my weather info dash location first. Let's give it a font size of, maybe let's go with 3 rem for now. And for our weather info space dot current value, I'll have a font size of maybe 5 rem. Let's save, go back, refresh. This time I'm going to try Mumbai again. See that? Looking beautiful, right? The location and the current temperature, right? And the condition value. We have a lot of spacing here because of a paragraph, I think. So let's just inspect. This paragraph has a lot of margin, right? So I'm just going to remove the margin bottom of my location. Margin bottom location margin bottom is 0. Now I'll go back and refresh. Let's try for Pune this time. Okay, I'm still getting that. It's the problem. So this is location. Okay, I'm not having the margin here, but I'm having the margin here. So current. So current, I'm going to remove margin top. 0. Let's see that now. Let's try New York this time. Okay, I'm not getting the data back for New York, and we are going to handle the errors. Okay, now it is looking good. So we are getting the data back, right? We are showing that data and it's looking beautiful also. Now let's check for the error condition, right? So somehow I think we are getting error for something. Maybe let's try the New York value, right? New York, and New York, I'm getting the data, but when I type something like this, I'm getting the error, cannot read property of undefined reading text, right? Because somehow maybe our weather data is not returning. See, what it is returning. It's returning the error object. Something went wrong, please try again later. And this is the error. Probably we are returning, I don't know. So I need to check. So when we get the error, right, we need to handle that condition. So I'm going to use error also. So I'm going to style my error also. So let's style that later on. First of all, I'll go back to my JavaScript file. And here, when we get data.error, so I need to put that condition, right? If my data dot error. So if data has an error, right, I want to show that error. So I'm going to target my error element dot text content, and we are getting error, right? So data dot error. Else I'm going to show my location data. Control X and Control V. That's why I said, we always need to clear this first of all. The reason is, if we have an error before, right, I just want to clear it. Or I'll show you first what I'm trying to fix it here. That will give you the idea like what I'm trying to say. I'll go back, I'll refresh. So say suppose I'm searching for Pune, I'm getting the data back. Now I'm searching for New York and I'm getting the error, right? Something went wrong, please try again. Try again later, right? But I'm showing the weather for Pune. That's what we need to clear the existing weather data, right? And so that is also one thing we need to do. So let's create a clear function here. So clear immediate. I don't want clear immediate, man. I just want to clear. Now this is the problem. Okay, so I'm going to call this function or a reset or a clear, or maybe I'll call it reset. That would look good. So I'm going to call this function here, or let's write a function, simple function called reset. It's going to reset all our elements, right? So I'm going to grab these two first, then I'm going to grab this one also. So everything we're going to reset. So empty, this will also be empty, and this one will also be empty. So we are resetting our text content always, whenever we are getting the new data back. So if we are getting the error, we are showing the error. Otherwise, we are showing the location data. Let's see how it works now. So I'll refresh. I'll type Pune, enter. I'm getting the data back. I'll try for New York. And see that something went wrong. Please try again later. And from where this error is coming, please try again later. Probably from our weather API. So I'll go to app.js. Something, yes, we had a spelling mistake in our code only. So please try again later. Okay, so we have that now. So I want to show this text, I need to change the font size. I'll go back to my main.css. I'm going to grab this one. And let's go with maybe, okay, it's an error, right? So we need to show the error in red color. So first of all, I'm going to change its color to maybe a red color. And let's change the font size also. So probably I'll go with 2rem this time. Refresh. Let's try again. New York. Something went wrong. Please try again later. Now let's try with some other value like London. See if we're getting the data back. Let's try with Pune again. And we're getting the data back. When I'm hitting this search weather API, right, we can also show the loading text, right? Maybe we can just show the loading text and while the data is loading. Sometimes it's possible, right? It will take some time to load the data. So we can do that. Just grab any of the text element probably. So if I go if you go back to main.js, when we are calling the reset only, right? So probably we can try to give some loading text here, or the other way. There are many ways of doing it. I'll keep it as an assignment for you. You can try that. So I think we are ready, right? We can show, we can see, right, our weather data is loading and we are showing that data on the UI. The app looks to be, complete, I would say, right? And now if I click on pricing, we don't see anything here. In credits also, we don't see anything here. So let's put some value in our pricing.hbs. So maybe I think while I'm calling this, I'm passing some values. I'll go to my pricing route. Yes, our services are free for now. We are passing some text, right? So let's use this value only. So in our app.js, we are passing this value. So pricing.hbs, I'm going to put something here. So that's the text, right? So we will just show the text. And now if I refresh, our services are free for now, but the text is not looking good. So maybe I'm going to wrap it inside a paragraph. And let's give it a class name of text. And I'm going to just I'm going to target all of my text here just to have some font size. Maybe I'll give it a 3rem. Let's add some margin top also, maybe of 2rem. Now if I refresh, see that our services are free for now. If I go to credits, we are not showing anything. So what is happening with my credits route? I don't have anything here. If I go to app.js, right, in the credits I'm passing made with love, but that's what we are showing on the footer, right? And somehow the footer is not coming down here, right? Maybe it is coming here. In case of home, in case of pricing, it's not coming. Okay, so credits, I'm going to put some text here. So I'll just put, some name here, like we can pass the JSON value, array of JSON here, and then we can use it. But I'm just going to hard code it for now. Sandeep Gautam, and I'll say a web developer, right? And then, so I'm going to put my name only for now. So we will use this text only here. So I go back to my credits, and let's grab that same paragraph which we have used inside our pricing page. So I'm going to grab this one only, and let's use the same thing here. And now if I refresh my credits page, see that I'm getting. So I'm just putting some something, just to show on our pages, right? So our home is the most important page we have created, where, if I enter any city name and press enter, right, it's getting refresh. Or maybe I'm not getting the value back. Okay. So this is the important page, the weather app home page, right, where we are searching for the weather data. I think that's it. This is it for this video. I think we had a long journey. I just wanted to have a quick recap, right, what we learned. So this is more of a Node and Express crash course. We'll now learn about Hello Express. We started by creating a server and showing some values. Saying Hello Express, and we have shown that on the client side. We talked about serving content, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I didn't cover the images, I think, but that's really easy. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and JSON data. We talked about templating, right? We have created so many templates, different pages. Then we have created our server, where we have interacted with the weather API, right? We have loaded the data, and we have shown it on server first, and then we have written the client side code, and we have used fetch. Here we have used Axios. Here we have used fetch to send a request from browser to our node server and grab the weather data, and we have shown that data, and everything we have learned practically, while creating this weather app. Now there might be some of the questions which are coming into your mind, probably, right? Why can't we directly hit this weather API from the browser? And you can do that. That's possible, but it's always good to have, such kind of things written on the server side. But there's nothing wrong in writing it on the client side also. So if you want maybe more information about it, probably I'll come up with another video where, I'm going to talk about this particular topic. So I'm going to stop here. This is a long video, but I tried to cover so many things in a hands-on way. And I suggest, watch this video, but use your hands also. You have to code, then only you're going to understand this video. So with that, I think I'm going to stop here. I'm going to see you in the next video with something new, maybe this topic or maybe other topic. If you have any suggestions, you can post it in the comment box. There is a comment box just below this video. Go and type something there. Give me some suggestions. That will give me ideas like what kind of videos you want to watch from me. So this is it. I'm going to see you in the next video. Until then, you take care and goodbye.